Hey Thunder fans and franchise listeners, I'm Madison Morris here in front of the Thunder practice facility in Oklahoma City. Now inside, the boys are having their exit interviews after facing elimination last night in Salt Lake City as the Jazz took a 96-91 win over the Thunder and will advance to round 2 of the playoffs to face the Houston Rockets. The Thunder entered the NBA playoffs at a number 4 seed in the Western Conference while the Jazz sat at number 5. The Thunder were able to take wins on their home court in games 1 and 5, but the Jazz retaliated, taking wins in games 2, 3, 4, and 6, and they will advance. Let's take you inside to full interviews from Billy Donovan, Russell Westbrook, Paul George, and Carmelo Anthony as they reflect on this past year and the future of Thunder basketball.
And that will be my focus in the offseason. How do we get better being a consistent team, regardless of who we're playing? Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be perfect or you're not going to have a bad night. But we can be more consistent on what I consider the controllables, things that we have control over. We can be more of a consistent team, and I think that we've got to do that. We've got to be more consistent on offense with ball movement and player movement. We've got to be more consistent on defense when it comes to transition defense and blocking out and the discipline on schemes. There's times we do it at a high level, and there was times we didn't do it at a high enough level. That's what we have to work on. That's I think every team always has a bear to cross or a burden that they've got to try to overcome. But I think over 82 games there's a body of work that it's clearly in front of us of what we got to focus on and get to work on and figure out a way to improve. And because of the character of these guys and the kind of people they are, that's where our focus needs to be. So that kind of gives me a level of optimism and excitement with the group, because it's the first year together and there was a lot of information that came from this year that I think we can pinpoint and address. I think everybody knew coming into the season how is this going to work, how they're going to all fit together, how they're going to gel, how they're going to mesh, how is all these things going to kind of come together. And everybody knew it was going to be a process, and the players knew it was going to be a process. But you're unable to, before the season starts, okay, what's going to be this team's challenge? I think everybody thought the challenge was, okay, how are all these guys going to fit in? Well, as the season went on, we got better offensively, and they fit in pretty well. But no one knew coming in, hey, this was going to be our challenge. We knew it as the season unfolded, but we've got to find a better way to get that resolved and fixed. Well, I think, again, we just finished playing last night. Like I said, I loved coaching Paul. I loved him as a person, as a human being. I loved his unselfishness, who he is as a player. I think it can only get better for him here after having 1 year together. I'm excited about that. I hope I get a chance to coach Paul for a long time. But Sam and Troy will sit down and talk with me about those things. But we haven't had time. We got in last night at 4 o'clock in the morning and came in here this morning to do this, and then we'll meet with the team and have exit interviews. He's always put the team first. He had one moment that he wanted to be in the game because of the competitor that he is. I'd rather have guys like that than someone that doesn't care. He really, really cares. So it's not about going into next year saying, hey, listen, you're having a reduced role. This is your role. I don't even know what our team's going to look like next year. So for me, all I want to make sure is how do I, as a coach, in Carmelo's role changing, how do myself and the rest of the guys enhance his role, make him better in his role? Because he's not isoing as much as he did in New York, it's the responsibility of myself and the rest of the group to try to find ways for him to get more shots and to take more threes and to get him in good spots to the floor. That's everybody's responsibility.
We obviously had previous relationships before the season, but to get through a season and figure out, real brotherhood is like, those guys are, somebody I can always look up to. Different things they brought to the game, not just on the court, but off the court. I think us bonding as brothers was a bigger thing for me. That's always the most important thing for me, is making sure that basketball is a short stint of your life, but friendships and different things like that go longer than that. And that was always the most important thing for me, is making sure that we bonded and understood, our upbringing, where we come from, know a little bit about, each one of us personally, and that was the most important thing. And my job is to make sure those guys are comfortable in doing what's right for them and their families. It's not up to me to make a decision on what they do. My job is to make it easy for them, whether they're here, whether or not, just making sure, like I said before, basketball is a short stint of our lives, but making sure that relationships stay most important. Number one, I didn't go through the free agent process the first time. Number two, two different relationships, and I think two different things. Obviously Kevin was here for many years, and then decided to leave, and Paul's only been here, for some months, and that's the decision that Paul will eventually make. But like I said before, man, our friendship and our bond, we created together, is more important to me, and that's what I truly care about. And me knowing Paul, like you said before, he definitely wants to be here, and through free agency for any player, it's always a decision up to them what's best for their family.
Yeah, well, I think it wasn't so much of making the transition from New York to Oklahoma City. It was more so making the transition of playing a certain way for 14 seasons and then switching to a completely, totally different style of player in this one season. So, it was more so me going to Billy and asking him, what did you need from me in order for this team to be successful? And like I said, all of that happened on the fly. Like, we had to learn that on the fly. Like, it wasn't planned. Maybe Billy had a plan of how he wanted to go into training camp, and then you had another component of me being traded in the 24th, 25th hour. So now it was like, how are we going to implement this component into what I already have going on? So there's a lot of things that went into play this season. I think just being, I don't want to say stripped, but I think just challenging me to be a different type of player, a different caliber player. A guy who's for 14 seasons have been a certain type of player, and to kind of be challenged and tested and say, okay, we need you to be this player, this type of player, this caliber of player. Very different than what I was used to before in the past. I think for me that was the most challenging part of it. But also being willing to accept that, understanding the situation and the circumstances that I was, handed to. Yeah, I mean, it's you jump right into it. I mean, it's something that like I said, I've enjoyed. My 6 months, 7 months here. A lot have went into these 6 months. I think now it's just more about kind of just reevaluating everything, me individually, career-wise, team-wise, just things that you have to step away from the game now that you have the time to, and kind of just get away from it for a little bit and almost reevaluate everything.
Sports Radio is 107.7 The Franchise.